Hang on.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to OTF Connects, Reaching the Reluctant Learner. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Christina Janjeski, who will be facilitating tonight's session. Christina has facilitated several very effective workshops for us. The last workshop that she did on the Reluctant Learner was so well received that we decided to run a part 2. So I'm certainly looking forward to tonight's session, and I hope it will be very useful for those of you that are here tonight. So Christina, all yours. And I do hope, before I pass it to Christina, I always have more words to say, I'm certainly hoping that the technology will run smoothly, and if it doesn't, please bear with us because it's been very trying the last couple of weeks. Christina.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight and for Reaching Reluctant Learners Part 2. And Stacy, it's nice to see you again. I thought I recognized your name from the last time. My name is Christina Janjeski Rodney. I've been teaching in Hamilton Catholic Board for 7 years now. I teach English at the high school level, but I did start teaching grades 7 and 8 in the elementary level. So before Teachers College, I also taught ESL for our board for a year, and so I've worked with all range of learners. And you can follow me on Twitter at Chris R. Rodney, and I'm happy to respond to anything if you have questions or if you want to just collaborate. I'm happy to follow you on Twitter, and we can work out maybe collaborating across classrooms. It's an easy way to contact me, and I'll also we can email through there. We can set that up. So in my spare time, when I do have spare time teaching English, I have a lot of fun with my 2 big dogs. So just so you know a little bit about me, this is Skeeter on the left and Huxley on the right. And we were just recently in the paper just for fun, and just to make mention in the Hamilton Spectator, there were about 25 Leon burgers down at Hamilton Beach. Yay for big dogs. Yes, thank you, Stacy. They're currently chewing and hopefully staying busy while we do this. So I apologize if you hear any barking in the background at any point. So we are all coming from different areas and different grade levels, so I'd like to start with a discussion of some of the major difficulties we face. I know some people don't have mics tonight, so if we want to use our chat, but I'm just wondering, you know, what do we usually hear is that we have a battle for productivity with the reluctant learners, getting them engaged in the lesson, making the activities authentic for them, I think is probably one of the biggest problems, because already they don't want to necessarily give us output. But you know, making that activity mean something to them is also the challenge, and then having the time to necessarily plan these things. So I'm just wondering if there are any other difficulties or issues that we've been encountering in our classrooms with the reluctant learner. So feel free if you'd like to post anything in the chat, or if you want to take the mic. Okay, Stacy, you posted an excellent chat message there. Absolutely, technology at home is definitely an issue. I try my very best to build time into my classroom and book out computers. I'm always constantly, you know, fighting for the computers, and maybe not to the, you know, my colleagues aren't necessarily thrilled with me, but I'm okay with that because I want the kids to have the time. But Karen's also said lack of family involvement. Yeah, definitely. Lack of time, because you only have 2 periods, yes, also definitely troubling. So I'm hoping tonight to address those issues with ways we can post resources and have kids be able to come back to certain lessons and interact with us and make it more timely. So hopefully you're going to walk away tonight with a lot of resources. I've actually have samples to all of the lessons I'm going to show you and websites. So everything is going to be offered to you that I show in the slide tonight, including the slideshow itself. So last time, if you were with me or not here, I shared a lot of information on wikis, Google Docs, SurveyMonkey, Linoit, and Wallwisher. You can see the list there. And if you want to just take your text tool right now and indicate with a check mark if you used it before, a smiley face if you plan on using it, and if you want to know more, if we have time at the end, maybe I can go back to those. But the archive of the recording of this session is, I've got the link there, and it's also in the Google Doc with all of the links so that you can go back and see what we talked about last time. Again, all the samples are there as well, the student work. So if you want to go ahead and use your tools right now just to indicate maybe what you've used. Okay. Great. So a little bit of, I think everybody's touched on almost everything, which is great. Got some advanced people tonight. Wonderful. Okay, so I'll get right to it then. We'll keep moving. Okay, so what I'm aiming for this time and what I'll be talking about is Edmodo, Animoto, a little bit further into Google Docs with the idea of WikiLeaks, using Linoit, which is that sticky note wall, as a check for making connections and learning, and embedding slideshows. Very little on Twitter because I have talked about it before, and if we have time, the flipped classroom. So hopefully, if you've used any of these before, is anyone on Edmodo right now or using Edmodo? Maybe you could indicate with a smiley face or a check mark, whatever tool you'd like if you're using Edmodo right now. Or any of the other tools, if you're familiar with using, so I know Google Docs, but Animoto. Okay. I'm wondering who's using Twitter, and if you wanted to mention maybe how you're using Twitter in the classroom right now. I'd love to hear how you're using that.
I'll just jump on there for a second, Katina. I can see you asking about how to make the check mark on the whiteboard space. The very bottom of the tool strip that you'll see on the left-hand side of the whiteboard, the very bottom tool is a clip art tool. And when you click on that, a little pop-up window will come up. And then if you go to the Common Symbols tab, you'll find all kinds of little symbols there that you can use to place on the whiteboard.
Stacy, thank you so much. That's so neat, mini book reporting. That's a great use for Twitter. And Katie, I see that you mentioned that they're talking with outside, as an outside source. That's fantastic. As a PLN, definitely. I can't tell you how much I use Twitter for getting resources from the teachers and talking about what they're doing in their classrooms and what works. It's been invaluable for me, and I can't imagine not having Twitter. Some people, post it for the wrong reasons, post things, but Twitter is such a valuable tool in my learning and development, and absolutely one of the #1 things that I use. I like how you mentioned that the librarian's also using it to format or to talk about books. That's another great idea. I should mention that to my librarian. Great. All right, so what I'm hoping tonight is that this time what the focus is not so much on the tools. I will talk about the tools, but how they can actually move our reluctant learners to be more independent, to take low risk but have a high output, and through the ease of use of what I'll be talking about. So they'll feel that confidence and validation through these tools, and only because I've seen it in my classroom, and I'm hoping that you can take something away tonight in those lessons. So how do we make that happen? I'm going to show you a very low-tech version of Twitter that we did because we didn't have computers. So what I did was I actually started the semester, and if you could start the school year, depending if it's elementary or secondary, with tweeting, but tweeting on a real wall, not a virtual wall. So I took little Twitter birds and cut them out for the first day, and I said that this was going to be our nice to tweet you wall, so nice to meet you. And I had students tweet a little bit about them. So I gave each a Twitter bird, a marker, and they had to look at the smiley face that you see there and find the word that stood out to them that described them, and they would use that in a hashtag. So they had only 140 characters or less, just like on Twitter, to post a wish that they had for the beginning of the school year, what they wanted to get out of the class, or something that they were maybe nervous about, and then they had to use a hashtag with their major quality. So what we ended up with were, here's some sample birds for you. You can see Tyler said, at English for you, continue to work hard and hand in work, hashtag slacker. These I picked, of course, so these students are the reluctant learners in my class, and Joanna admitted that William Shakespeare is not my friend, hashtag sorry, not sorry, because she was very honest about how difficult she finds Shakespeare. And I like that students face their fears right at the beginning of the semester. And one from my 2P class, which I loved, Matt was very honest about the fact that he was excited to read new books, but he was nervous about not passing the class. But he did share that he felt talented, which was nice to hear. So what I did with them is I actually took the tweets and I posted them on the back wall so that everyone could see them. But then what I did was I made that techie, I guess you could say, by taking the pictures and posting them onto our website so that all the students could see their Twitter-based birds. So now it's your turn. I'm going to give you a moment to look at the picture, see the first word that appears for you, and then I want you to think about what you'd like to post. And we're going to do it on the next slide. So I'll give you a moment just to pick out the word. So hopefully everybody had a chance to grab a word. And now I want you to, these are the imposter Twitter birds, and you can post your tweet. So using your text tool, if you can post your wish, yeah, there we go, it's going to start typing, and your hashtag with your quality. Okay, so it looks like I think everybody's had a chance to post their tweet with their hashtag and their quality. Great. So you can see how this could easily be turned into a virtual tweet, which would be not only an easy way to get students involved, because I found that a lot of students in my class are actually not using Twitter, or if they are, they're not using it properly, but a lot of students did not know about or how to use Twitter, what hashtags were. And so I spent some time talking about Twitter because I will be talking later about how we used it in class as a project. So where do all these tweets go? Where do all these materials go? I want to talk about what I think is the most important is a central location to have communication between students and between their parents. So I'm currently using Edmodo. In the past I've used Wikis, and I still do, but I find that regardless of what you're using, it's really important, I believe, to have this because it's a way to archive my lessons, student work, post assignments for them, link videos and samples. And so I can't get away from doing this. I think it's the most valuable tool is to have a central location to be posting the material. And I can't remember how many people were using Edmodo. If you can maybe post in the chat or indicate with a check mark if you are using Edmodo or something like Edmodo. Okay. Oh, I think maybe Stacy got kicked out there, and she's back. Okay, so Edmodo, I'll just take a brief moment to talk about what it is. Edmodo is like Facebook, and so a lot of students like this because it looks like Facebook, but it's just a website to host your materials. And I've really enjoyed using this because you can give assignments online, mark assignments online, give a quick feedback to students. And this is great for the reluctant learner because it's a space to go back to and view any content that maybe wasn't understood or absorbed. And I can actually, what I really love is that they can message me, and this is all something that their parents can see, but they can message me when they are struggling. And I can quickly give them feedback rather than them being stuck for the next day. They can message me that day or that night when they're stuck, and they can feel like they come in confident the next day. So because it's like Facebook, it's that medium that they're familiar with, and it gives them that comfort level where maybe face-to-face they're afraid to ask or put up their hands in class. So I think it's a really great tool. And I've also started to use badges. So you actually give badges to your students when they do accomplish a task or when they're stuck on something. So these are just some sample ones that I found online. These are not the ones that I have, but you can actually create your own badges, and they can see their badges automatically. It can be a reward system that communicates if they're being successful and what next steps they need to take. So I found that it's a great, easy reward system that they actually start to look to every time they log on. So there's been a kind of competition. Well, I have 3 badges in my class, and you know they're getting. It's great for Karen for grade school. I've actually seen a lot of grade schools using this, and there's even online communities that you can follow, elementary or secondary, and you can follow subject-specific groups. So if you wanted to get more on math, there are literally hundreds of teachers on Edmodo sharing lessons every single day. And you can follow them like you would on Twitter, but actually get lessons and add them to your online library. So I think Edmodo is a phenomenal tool. Does anyone have any questions about Edmodo at this point, or do you want to know more about Edmodo? It is free for educators, and you can have, I think, up to, in any one classroom, I think you can have up to 50 students. Okay, Karen asked, just wondering about the students' email addresses. They can log on with their name and just a first initial of the last name, and they can use their school email address, and they don't have to log in with their email address, and it's not shown on Edmodo. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Any other questions about Edmodo? So just a little brief summary I provide here for you. Just what's great in Edmodo, to another tool that I didn't mention to you, is a polling tool. You can, I know that many people probably have used things like SurveyMonkey and other survey tools, but Edmodo has a built-in polling tool, and you can ask a class question and quickly get feedback, and the other students can see the reaction. They can actually see the results right away. So as soon as they take the poll, they can see how the class voted. And that can also be a great feedback tool to see if people are stuck at a stage in an assignment. I use it sometimes to see, did you understand? What do we need to go back and work on, and give them a multiple choice polling tool. And it's built right into the page like Facebook. The only thing that I find is a drawback with Edmodo is that I don't have, you can create what are kind of like pages, but they're library folders. But in wikis, you can have, like in a website, you can actually have your multiple pages, and it's a little bit easier to navigate content on pages. And oh, Louise asked, do I use Edmodo a lot during class? Absolutely. I can actually go to the assignment, and students can load into the cloud. So on Edmodo, they can actually carry their Google Docs in what's called a backpack, or anything that they do at school, so they can actually have access to their documents at school and at home, and it's seamless, which is really nice. So I want to talk about one of probably our biggest problems with reluctant learners, which is getting written output, whether it's on paper or on the computer. Sometimes I find it's great to have the computers for the students, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to produce anything more than if they were on paper. That's not always the case, I'm sure, as we know. So how do we solve this problem? What are some of the problems with writing? I find that it's forced sometimes, depending on this assignment. It's minimal. Sometimes we get 1 to 2 sentences, and it's rushed. I often have some of my students who just want to get it done. Does anyone else have a similar experience or want to share any problems that they have when it comes to writing assignments? Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that's happening for us in just a few weeks, but it's something that, whether it's in math or English, getting students to, when they hear the word test, whether it's the literacy test or whatever testing we're talking about, it's something that students hate, teachers dread, and parents definitely stress about too, because they're trying to get their kids ready for these tests. But it's always that kind of, that dreaded formal testing that gets them a little bit anxious and nervous. So what I chose to do, and just to give you that this is a sample lesson, is I tried to choose your own adventure. And I don't know how many people remember the choose your own adventure books. I certainly do. But when I asked my kids in class, nobody had any idea what I was talking about. But what I had them do was, instead of the newspaper report that often we want students to maybe attack as a kind of creative thing, can be hard to get them writing about. So what I did was I tried it with a choose your own adventure approach. And rather than kill this idea for them, it brought them to life. So I chose to take 4 pictures, and they got to choose which picture they wanted to write about, which one interested them the most. So these are the 4 pictures that I chose. And I don't know if anybody wants to guess which one nobody was interested in. If you want to, I don't know if, Louise, we can have our polling tool come, oh, maybe not polling yet, sorry, but first if I could ask you to use your polling tool to see which one you're most interested in. It's in the upper right-hand corner. So if you can indicate which one you are most interested in right now, A, B, C, or D. If you had to write a news report about one of these 4 pictures, which would you choose? I think my chat has frozen, so I'm just going to check here. Mine is frozen.
Oh, I'm just going to comment to Anne. Yep, your chat worked okay there. Christina, I saw your message come up, and I feel bad for Anne. I think she's got some internet lagging issues, so hopefully she'll get popped right back in again.
Okay. So, Louise, do you mind if we, I don't know if we can show that poll up on the result when, there we go. Okay. Oh, so we had 2, oh, we got people kicked out here. Okay, so we had, all right. I wonder if
Stacy just got bumped and now she's back in again. Stacy, let us know when you can hear us. And Christina, maybe you can just ask the question quickly again, and Stacy can make her selection.
Okay, Stacy, if you can make your selection based on the picture that interests you the most. Okay, so we have, based on our results, picture A and picture D were the top rated. And funny enough, as that would happen in my class, picture B had no interest at all. And yeah, I was really interested to hear from the kids, but they were not interested in the store opening whatsoever. So that one was a bit of a fail. But they were very interested in the skateboarding one, had the most interest, and the ducks. But we had quite a few kids also right on the riot in the bottom corner there. So they chose a picture, and then I had them move to the side of the room to start just discussing what they could jot down as the 5 W's and how as a group. So then they already had their brainstorming done, and they were excited. They were coming up with crazy ideas about what this picture meant or what could be happening. And then they even went on to, I had them, say, we do want to include quotes. They pretended to fake interview each other and as expert witnesses and started making up quotes. So it was absolutely fantastic. Everybody was excited about their articles and they were interacting. And then I had them go on to create titles. So they even they had to choose a really out there title to get people interested. So what we ended up with is the result of this was I didn't expect it to go. I didn't know how well it was going to go, but even the most reluctant student was invested in their group's story. And even though they were going to go on to write this on their own, they went off with so much information. They were extremely confident, and they felt like a little news team, that they had gone out into the world to become a little news team. And then they felt that they had choice, and I think that was the key to getting them engaged, is that they felt like they got to choose, and it wasn't just me telling them, okay, sit down, write this. And I actually have never had such a response. They were saying, Miss, did you read mine yet? Did you see my title? Did you see my caption? Did you see my quote? They were extremely excited about sharing this with the group. So we used what is considered, I guess, to be a fairly low-tech, just Microsoft Publisher, nothing exciting, but having a template, and I did put this in the resources, having a template for them to do that. They were able to then just post them right into our Edmodo page and onto their blogs and create some fake links to other stories. So it really, can embrace both the, just the regular, what we expect them to do, and have a tech component to it. So I want to just quickly share this example because Natalie, even though this isn't, and I think it still turned out a fantastic job she did here, but she's not she is a student that needs the help but tries to look cool. She says, oh, I know what I'm doing. No, I'll do it at home. But she was so excited about this. I finally saw her for the first time. I asked her, could I put it up in the classroom? And she smiled and she said, of course you can. And it was really the first time that I've actually seen her excited about doing some work in class. So it was nice to see that she was coming around because she felt so proud of her newspaper article. So she made it to the wall. This is the wall in our classroom. And it didn't matter. It wasn't about spelling mistakes. It wasn't about the perfect polished piece. It was that she was excited about the creativity, and she was writing, and she was enjoying it. So I was, something that was seemingly an easy task, she took a lot of pride in, and they all were excited to read each other's news stories online. Are there any questions about that activity or comments? Hopefully the chat's working okay still. Okay, so it's your turn. Oh, I'm going to first show you some titles. These are the titles they came up with. Downtown Decrossing, Teenage Murderers Evade Police on Skateboards. I love that one. The boys that were involved in this one went to town on this story, and they were boys who liked skateboarding, so it was really neat to see. Their story was hilarious. It was just great. Oh, Tina said I just did, or I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly. I apologize. I choose your own adventure with Google Forms. Fantastic. And then we had the St. Patrick's Day riot was the last picture there. So some great ideas. Oh, thank you. So I also tried the Hunger Games. I don't know if anyone's studying the Hunger Games. We do the Hunger Games in grade 10, and I had them blog as news reporters, doing a blog on what was happening in District 12. Gave them some other ideas to do this with, and include pictures, video content from what could have been the explosion in the mines, things like that. So they did enjoy this a lot. So I thought we might try this. We had our polling pictures, and the two that you chose, if you want to just take a look, if you were either A, or I believe the other top one was, oh, I don't want to get this wrong, C, the ducks, and the ducks and the riot. So I think it was A and D were the most popular. So if you're in the A group, focus on the details of the ducks, see the three people that are in it. We're going to try this a really quick brainstorm. And then we've got the riot with the gentleman holding the baton. I think the police officer has some pepper spray there, and there's a crowd of people in the background. So we're going to give this a quick try. If you grab your text tool, and Louise, I think you had the easy way to break up the page here for us. There we go. And we're going to brainstorm really quickly. We're going to see, we did this on the spot, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So what would you write about this picture? So if you want to just grab your text tool, if you were the duck crossing, you can start typing away, or if you were the riot, and see what details we can come up with. I love cheerleaders encourage duck triathlon. G20 all over again, good. So we can see lots of ideas quickly come out of just a few of us even talking. And the groups ended up being, I didn't mind if the groups got to be 5 to 10 students, it didn't matter. They all actually worked well. The more, even I thought it might get out of hand, but it actually worked really, really well because they all wanted to interview each other. Duck Dynasty city style, fantastic. All right, so I think everyone gets the idea of where we're going here. I would give you the, oops, I'm sorry if I catch me if you can live. So what we would do is I would do this with a group. I did this in a Google Doc, and then they could add the information, or you could do this completely on paper and then have them transfer to a publisher, and then have them come up with their title based on the picture. They actually came up with a couple titles, and some of them then went off on their own and changed the title even further. So they really took ownership for their articles, and it was great to see that they were enjoying it and being creative, because often they feel like they just have to do something, because we have to, get certain assignments done. So it's that creative component that really brought out a lot of the students. So I want to move on to what I think is really what gets kids talking, and that's when we ask them for their opinions. So I chose a local matter. I am from Hamilton, and there's a big debate, of course, going on right now, not just in Hamilton, but in, I know, Toronto as well, about whether we should have a casino in Hamilton or not. And I had students just get up and walk from one side of the room to the other, agree or disagree, and they started having small paired talks. And what I really found is that when you give students the opportunity to talk about something that is important to them, whether it's skateboarding, the other pictures, or I didn't know how excited they would get about this, but the casino really got them going. It really fosters that discussion, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to write anything. So what I did was I had them talk to me, and I recorded for them on the board. We have a smart board in our room, but on the computer, I just recorded their answers. And what I ended up getting was, because it was a low-risk situation and they wanted to debate with each other back and forth, it got pretty heated really quickly in my grade 10 applied class. But when they had the answers there, all the stuff that they talked about, they used it, and they were happy to use it as they started to write out an opinion paragraph. So we just use this for the basis of an opinion paragraph. And I furthered this by then showing them a video where I found a local debate that was on the news, very short, 15 minutes. We broke it up in a couple sessions and had them, we added to the Google Doc as we watched the video, and they heard both sides. And interestingly enough, they were against a casino in our city for some very interesting reasons. So what was really nice about this is I was able to take the slideshow, and talking about the reluctant learner again, with an emphasis on that I took the slideshow and I embedded it into our class page so that students who might have missed something on the first hearing of the video could go back and listen to it again. So I found that to be a huge help for them, because a lot of students were reluctant at first until they heard it again to add to their points and their proofs, but they had that to go back to. So the brainstorming set the stage. It was almost seamless because they had so much information that they themselves had come up with. I didn't give them any help at all, and the brainstorming aspect became very easy. They could go back to their document, fill in their points and their proofs, and I just used a graphic like this, which I did provide for you in the Google Doc with all of these links. So simple graphic organizer that they could go type into, and once again, every single student had something to fill in because they had such strong opinions on the casino. Any questions about that? So that was simply to move from an opinion paragraph, and then we went on later to talk about opinion essays, but this was just a straightforward graphic organizer. So I want to take a moment to consider where we're coming from. I don't know do we have any secondary, or I don't know where people are coming from tonight, so I don't know if you want to indicate with a check mark on the left or the right if you're elementary or secondary. So if you want to grab a web or a, yeah, check mark is good. Oh, there's one in between. Okay, so because of this, I think that it's important that it doesn't matter what we're doing or where we're coming from. We know that all these students have anxieties, different learning styles, and different interests, and I think that's always in the forefront of my mind. So I do want to share, even though I'm going to share an example of grade 12 university English, I think that what to keep in mind is that we have reluctant learners in every class and different levels in every class. It doesn't matter if it's a grade 7 or grade 7-8 split, a grade 12 class. There's not going to be, even in advanced or academic English, those students aren't all at level 4. And so there's a lot of reluctant learners sitting in our class. And I find this especially with Shakespeare. And as Stacy just mentioned, yeah, the teachers are often reluctant too. So there's, it is something that we struggle with all the time. So just trying to find different ways to tackle that. I find it always a challenge with Shakespeare because they shut down and think this is difficult. I can't understand the language. This is another language. And there's a lack of conversation unless we implement certain tools. So taking a page out of Danika Barker's book, a couple of years ago I saw her do a Twitter project with her class, and she had them all tweet as characters in Shakespeare. And she had seen this, I think it was in London, they did this with Romeo and Juliet in London, England. So I tried this with different texts, Brave New World and Hamlet, and had some success. And we didn't do it to the full extent until this semester. And what I found was some of the most quiet students in my class are the most active Twitter voices in this project. The tweets are hilarious, but they're very much linked to what's happening in the scenes. They take all kinds of liberties and post, different links to content that, my character would be listening to this song on iTunes right now because they're feeling, either, sad or something like that. And I did provide one of the great tweeters in our class. I provided in the docs. You can follow her. She's at Dish on Denmark. She's a news reporter in the Twitterverse for us right now. But it's that lack of pressure because they don't have to write in Shakespearean language. It's 140 characters or less, and they have so much fun with it. Well, thank you, Karen, for that. So some sample tweets here. King Claudius, I've made arrangements to have a very special surprise waiting for Homie Hamlet in England. And that, of course, is King Claudius' signed Hamlet's death wish. So you can see they're having fun with their hashtags. Just the present, I swear. So they have a lot of fun with this. And the ghost, of course, comes back a couple of times. So I think it would be fun to try at any level with different characters or even poetry. I'm trying to think of looking into that as a possibility as short tweets as tweeting Twitter poetry. And it makes it a lot less scary, absolutely, Stacey. So, to have the students, I not only know that they're reading, but I know that they're understanding. And so they're making that connection, and it's really pushing their learning to applying it. And it really takes away that fear of, this is something foreign. So I'm thinking too, it'd probably be great. You could even, use it in different subject areas. Maybe as you could have historical figures. You could do a history unit and have students tweeting as those historical figures. Oh, okay, so I'm going to go back for a second. Stacey asked, how do you get them signed in as the character? So Karen, great idea. Yeah, so in grade 5, you could use that for sure with civics. What I do is I have them come up with a completely new Twitter account, and they create their Twitter handle, and then we all follow the character. So I post all the character handles in class and on our Edmodo page or whatever your class page is. You can physically just post these in class. I actually used Post-it notes the first time I did this because we didn't have Twitter accounts just yet, and had them tweeting on Post-it notes and going up to see what the other people had tweeted by literally physically putting them on paper in the classroom. I talked about that in the first Reluctant Learners, and we had great success with that. So it could be something as simple, even if you're as a teacher not comfortable with Twitter, as having them use little Post-its because those are short messages to start practicing tweeting and using @names, hashtags, fake links to things. And then I had them share their handles and follow each other. So we just had an account where we all followed the characters. I also created a character for myself. I pretended to be William Shakespeare. And so I would kind of drop in and see if certain things were going okay. And I would retweet characters' tweets based on popularity. So it's really nice to have your own account as well so that you can watch that.
So just a question, are you having them all share the Twitter handle so they can all sign in as each other, or do you each have an individual character that they follow throughout the story?
Great question. So I had almost everyone in the class, and I do have some big classes, so almost everyone in the class had a Twitter handle except for a couple that we doubled up on. So for example, there were always 2 people who were King Claudius, and they could tweet separately or together as King Claudius. They would share the tweeting. But we had some smaller characters, and we made up some fictitious characters that could be, for example, the reporter in Denmark. So rather than having, I mean, you could do it where you would have a group Twitter account if you wanted to just tweet as the class. I could see that happening. Or if you wanted to do it as separate characters in maybe fiction or in history or something like that. Any other questions about Twitter?
I have a question, Christina. Some of these activities, do you have them, are you assigning it as in-class work, or are you doing a little bit of both where they'll do that partly on their own time or as homework and then come back in class? How do you split that for what they're doing in class to what they do at home?
With the Shakespeare Twitter, I have it, they have sometimes in class sometimes, but that is more of an after, or they can do it during school or after school. But I don't have them tweeting too much, so they don't have to tweet a lot, but I do it as an extra piece with the grade 12 university. If I were doing it I think in a different grade or with my grade 10s who don't necessarily have the computer access, I would use it more as an in-class activity. So I'm going to move on, if everyone's okay, with the idea of WikiLeaks. And I'm sure most of us have heard about WikiLeaks and Julian Assange in the news and all of the conflict there. But students, what I like to do, I tried something a couple years ago when WikiLeaks were big and there's a big break in information being leaked. And I had them pretend as if they were leaking sensitive documents based on the play. I'm just using the example of the play here, but you could do this on anything. Based on the play, and they were leaking this information out to the public as if this is something that we would want to know as the general public, that would be sensitive documents that either the government would have or someone would have in their possession that nobody wants to know about, or everybody, sorry, wants to know about. So to tackle Shakespeare again, there's a big scene in Shakespeare, and this could be with any unit that you have. I broke up the material and in little scene pieces, and they had to leak information based on their scene. So I'm going to try to do a web tour with you now. If it doesn't work for me, I'm going to put the link into the chat, and you can view this WikiLeaks on your own, and I'll give you a moment to do that. But I want to share this example because it is from a bunch of students who were really reluctant to talk about Shakespeare. There's lots of examples on my website on Grade 12 English 2012, the Wikispaces, but I'm sharing with you an example of a group that was very reluctant at first, but they jumped right in and even put in a sound bite into their WikiLeaks document. So I'm going to try this right now. Okay, of course it's freezing for a minute. All right. And I don't know if anyone else can see the page right now, but it's definitely frozen on my end. If you can indicate me with a check mark if you can actually see the page.
So if you're
I'm going to push it into this.
Yeah, if you see the Denmark Times in whiteboard space, give us a green check mark. So Karen, you do not. Anne, are you able to see it? Yes, you are. And Paul, are you able to see the Denmark Times? You can give us a green check mark using your polling icon right under your name in the participants box.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think it's just Karen that can't see.
Yep. So you can just direct them to the link then.
Okay. So if Karen, you want to click on in the chat, the WikiLeaks link is there if you want to view it on a separate window and come just take a look. If you notice in your window, you'll see that they leaked information about what was happening at the beginning of the scene, and they had a lot of fun with it. They embedded pictures into their Google Doc, and they even embedded a little vocaroo, which is a little voice recording right into their document. So it's not, it's not elaborate, it's not, very dramatic, but they took something that they would pretend a conversation that was leaked, and they took a big risk and put it out there for the whole class. So I was so proud of them for taking this chance, and they even included a picture of themselves at the end. They're hilarious as the reporters leaking this information. So I'll give you a moment if you want to just view that, and then indicate when you've finished looking at it, if you want to indicate with a check mark when you come back. Karen, you were able to see it then? Thanks, Karen. They had a lot of fun with this. Some of them are, again, more elaborate. You can go in and see them all on our Wikispace page. They are quite hilarious. They took a lot of, and some of them actually embedded their tweets onto their Wikispace pages. So it was great to see that they were using what they were comfortable with, the tweets that we were doing in class, and they put them right into their WikiLeaks as if it were a personal tweet that was caught by someone in the media. And if you're interested in how I did this, I've actually broken down the assignment. It's on my Wikispace, so if you're interested in how I went about setting this up for them, you can see what the instructions that I gave them right on the Wikispace page. And this is also in that Google Doc with all of the sources. So if you have finished, if you can just indicate with a check mark that you're back from the page. Oh, Louise, that's a great idea for elementary kids to maybe do this as an animal from the animal's perspective. That would be really neat. I think leaking any information, yeah, especially an animal's perspective, right, something we don't hear, would be really neat to see. Okay, so I'm going to move forward if that's all right. And there's the sample that you were looking at. Okay. So this is might seem just like a simple task, but it's one that works really well for the reluctant readers in my class. And we have a small subscription to Scholastic Scope. I'm wondering if people have used Scholastic Scope. So maybe if you want to indicate with a happy face in your chat or another check mark, if you've heard of Scholastic Scope. This is great for elementary and secondary. This is a wonderful resource. Katina says she's confused. Okay. Katina, oh, no, not confused. Okay. Okay, so some people have used it. Okay, great. Scholastic actually offers an online magazine and a print version of this magazine, and you can actually have it read to the class aloud. So this helps reluctant learners. I've actually posted the link for this on the page with all the resources. But what's great is I post the link to the material right onto my Edmodo page or my class page so that students can go back and read it again when we are studying something. So they can actually access this from home. They don't have to have the print magazine in front of them. And even if they forget the magazine at school, they can access this at home and read the story again or have it read to them at their pace. So it's a really nice tool, and you don't have to have a subscription to use the online materials. So even if you want to try this on your class, there's a rich wealth of issues on there, that the past issues and the present one too. And you can get little quizzes and things too. A lot of vocabulary practice, making connections kind of lessons. It's a great resource. But the reason I'm talking about this is that I had them look at, we read the story of Mount Vesuvius, and then they had to make a connection to a natural disaster that has happened today. So what I had them do is we went to Linoit, just a sticky note wall, and I had them choose a natural disaster from a present day and link it with the past Mount Vesuvius and why people didn't leave, because we talked about in Mount Vesuvius how people did not run necessarily, some of them stayed. And I said, would you stay, or how many people were lost, lives were lost in these current events? And then post a Linoit sticky with a link to a common, or a most recent natural disaster, and how many people were lost in it, or did they have any warnings, just to check for understanding. And what's great about Linoit and now what was WallWisher is now Padlet is you can put video and live links. And so then students could actually go in and read up on the other students' work and the natural disasters that they found. About using the sticky notes wall. I think a lot of people indicated that they had used them before. I don't know if you know now that you can download the pages and embed them right into your spaces that you use for your class. So it's a nice archive of the students' work where we might lose paper and get rid of paper in our classrooms. We now have something that we can go back to and even revisit at the end of the unit. I find this is great to check their knowledge and understanding at the end of the unit as well, and see maybe how their ideas have changed. So I'm wondering if we want to brainstorm other uses for sticky note walls while we're here, or how you might use them in your classroom. So feel free to grab your text tool and maybe indicate how you might be using sticky notes in your classroom, virtual or otherwise just paper sticky notes. Okay, Karen shared a great idea, using it to on a concept line or value line. That's a great way, I think, to have students understand placement. Has anyone else used a virtual or sticky note wall and in a different way? A KWL chart, fantastic. Thank you. This would be a great one for reluctant learners. Yeah, afraid to ask. Questions they're too afraid to ask. And using the idea of anonymity would be great for this, right? Just coming up and sticking them on the wall when they're comfortable. Oh, I love that. Questions during a guest speaker, right? And exit slips. Great. Yeah, this would be nice as an exit slip because you would have them all in one area. If you were using the online one, you'd have them all gathered together. It would really show the consolidation of their learning. Questions for later discussion? Great. Agree or disagree as a debate, that would be great. You can almost shuffle them from one side to the other. You could break up the page. Okay. Brainstorming ideas, yeah, brain steering, very good. This is great, lots to take away tonight from this. Okay. All right, so if anyone has any final thoughts or wants to put anything into the chat. Yes, great, Louise, for nurturing creativity session.
Kristen, I just find that they're really good for students who often don't have much to produce in the middle of the class. That way they're a little fearful of putting their information out there, whereas if you're just typing it into a computer or putting it up on a note, a lot of people don't know whose it is or who mentioned it, so they're a little more likely to put that risk out there, and it works out really well for them.
Absolutely. I've used sticky notes in a lot of different classes for even, especially when we're studying something difficult. And when we get to a roadblock, I just give them a chance to post something. You're absolutely right, because you know that our reluctant learners, our students, are, in every class don't want to put that hand up. It's that moment of feeling like, am I the only one who doesn't know the answer to this? But we usually know that there are another 10 in the class who don't, and are at the same stage as they are. So yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the second last tool, but I wanted us to have a chance to chat about Animoto. So if people could indicate if anyone's used Animoto before, maybe just with a check mark in your participant chat or window there, sorry, a check mark or an X if you have not used it. Okay, so Animoto is just an online video tool. Some people probably have used Movie Maker at their schools or iMovie, and Movie Maker has a lot of glitches to it. It freezes a lot, I find. It does have some nice features, so does iMovie, but of course not every kid has access to these programs at home. Animoto is an online video maker. It's completely free for educators. We can set up educator accounts and get 50 accounts free for all students with full-length videos. If you sign up for Animoto.com, you'll only get a free 30-second video maker, but if you ask for the education upgrade, they do it for one email account for 50 students. And it's a really easy way to look really professional, but it's low risk, and it has beautiful templates. Students can make very professional looking videos or slideshows with just dragging and dropping a few photos and text into the Animoto interface. So it is one of the best ways I've found to get the reluctant learner on board when it comes to producing something, and they are so proud to share these videos because you'll see, I'm going to show you one in a second, how professional they can come out looking in such a short time with very little effort, or they can also become pros at it and teach the class little tools or tricks that they've learned in Animoto. So it's one of my favorite new tools that I'm exploring with my kids, and they're really enjoying it. So you can or cannot watch, you might know the girl in the corner here. She has hit millions of views on YouTube. What I did with my students is we've been talking about a lot of how-to videos, so we're looking at grammar videos that how to use I or I and me and things like that. So we watched this how not to video just because this girl is something that they can relate to, that they've seen on YouTube, and she's a cute girl who actually was catapulted to fame on Ellen because she made a really bad how-to video and she burned her hair off while using a wand. She was trying to, show you how to curl your hair, and it goes terribly wrong. But it was just an intro way to get kids on board and, feeling comfortable with how things cannot always work out, to show that reluctant learner that if you put yourself out there, even if it doesn't work, you can have things work for you. So this girl actually became quite famous from her little how-to video. So I use that as an intro into making how-to videos and making videos. So I'll leave you with a link there if you would like to watch her on YouTube later. She is quite cute. 24 million views, yes. And just days after she put it up, Stacy, she was up to 8 million views within, I think, 3 days. And then, of course, she made her appearance on Ellen, and it went crazy. So what I had students do was create a how-to video on what would seem like painful topics, but this was after we did the newspaper story and the opinion essay, and they felt like experts already. So I took something that they felt comfortable with and had them create how-to videos on these topics. They could choose, again, they had a choice, or if they wanted to do something else that we learned in class, they could do that as well, but these were the two most popular ones that they ended up creating. Then we posted them online and they could actually watch each other's, and we watched them in class as well, and they could comment on each other's videos. They were all excited to have their video played in class. They kept asking, when's mine next, and they wanted to be able to see theirs up on the big screen. So I want to share a little story about Camille, and hopefully I won't get choked up while I'm trying to tell you the story. But Camille has a lot of learning disabilities, and she is in her last year at our high school. She was streamed in the locally developed for her time at our school, but then decided she really, really wanted to try the applied level and challenge herself. And she's very shy in a lot of ways with her writing, but she loves celebrities. She loves talking with celebrities. She has her own YouTube channel where she follows all these celebrities. But she's always wanted to put herself out there. And what we have is the reluctant learner in the most important, or the best form, I guess, is the person who's, I think she struggles so much and is always afraid to put herself out there. And she created one of the best videos, I think. She even posted, went as far as to find music that she loved and uploaded it. Nobody else in the class went to these lengths. She really went to a lot of work to create this video. So if we could, I think Louise, you have the link there. Okay. If you want to take a moment to just, I don't think the web tour is going to work for me, but I can try.
If not,
if you want to watch.
I was just going to interject and say I can drop it in the web tour and see if it works better at
Perfect,
my end.
thank you. Okay.
And then if it doesn't show up on your screen, everyone, in a moment or two, then you can go ahead and click on the link in the chat. And you will need to click play in the center of the video in the whiteboard space.
So once you've had a chance to watch it, yeah, thank you, Louise. If you can give a green check mark, that would be perfect. I think, oh, okay. Karen, can you hear me now? Okay, great. So I think we have everyone back now. Just wondering if people want to share their thoughts on the video or questions about the program itself. Feel free to take the mic or drop a line in the chat. Great idea there, Karen, to use it as the idea of determining importance with animal facts. How did the grade 3s find using it? Was it, did they find it easy to use? Did they get to share their products with the entire class? I'm just wondering what the experience was like for you. Oh, very nice that they got to share with their reading buddies. Fantastic. Yeah, it's definitely, we use it in, I use it in both my academic classes and my applied classes with great success, so that you can do a lot with the program. But what I love is that you can look professional even if you don't have the tech skills. And you know, I think even as teachers, we feel uncomfortable maybe starting with a new tool, and it's really easy to start with this tool if you have experience, a lot of experience or zero experience. And when it comes to this case of Camille, it was just that pride that she took in sharing this with the class, and the class was so excited to see her final product, and they were commenting on what she was able to do. She didn't, I know there's not anything elaborate in this video, but to know what she was up against and to see how far she's come. She's now blogging about the celebrities, and she's you know, on Twitter. So Camille has come a long way and really come out of her shell and is putting herself out there every single day. Does anyone have any questions about the tool itself, about getting onto Animoto or creating accounts? So for the 50 accounts, no, you can make as many videos as you want, Stacy, and they have full length features, and they also have the pro features. Because of education accounts, they give them all the features. So Animoto is very good in sharing with teachers. If there aren't any other questions about Animoto, I'm just going to go on to the last tool. Oh, okay, Louise asked, you switch the kids who are attached to the account when a New Year's term starts. You can actually create a new account, or you can go into paid accounts, so there's lots of different ways to go about it. But I think that after, I think it's 180 days, the kids lose access to their account. So what they should do is download their videos. They can actually grab their videos before those accounts run out. That's what I've found so far. But we haven't gone to the paid ones yet, so I'm not sure if anybody else has any experience with how that works. Maybe Karen? Oh, okay, interesting. So maybe I'm wondering what your resource teacher had to do to set it up. But if you just have your educational email, whichever email you're comfortable using, you can get access up to 50 accounts for free for your students. And they just provide a code, as with some of the other resources shared tonight, just a code for your students. All right, so we are coming down to the end, and everyone's been excellent. So I just want to share a really short idea that I use for reluctant learners in my class. I tried this with my 4U students, but I feel like you could try this in a very small degree or a small level with many different topics. But I tried flipping the classroom a little bit, where I gave them the note as they were doing some reading. So almost like a hint at what we're getting at, so that then they would be motivated to ask questions. So they weren't looking necessarily for answers to questions, assigned homework questions, but that they knew what they were working towards. And I did this simply through a Google Doc, and we could then add questions to the Google Doc. So when they came in the next day, we had a lot of discussion. I'm just wondering if anyone else has tried this with the more reluctant learners in the class, maybe flipping the classroom, where you send them home with what they need to know, and they come back with questions about what you told them. So feel free to grab the mic or post a message in the chat if you've ever done this before, or maybe indicate with an X if you have not had any experience with this before. Stacy posted a good note there. I'm fearful that they wouldn't be so reluctant that they wouldn't be completed. What I found was that it actually, I was really worried too that nothing would happen or come of it. And I had many more people involved in this discussion because they knew what I was trying to get at, and it wasn't rather than them copying down some kind of note or answering some prescribed questions, that they were able to engage in the discussion. They knew what I was about to talk about, and so they took it further and said, well, why did the character think about this? And what was the character's motivation in this? And it was an interesting, I think it's one of those things that's worth trying. It's just something different, but it does take some practice, but it can have great results. Karen, you mentioned that some secondary teachers are trying this at your board. It is becoming more popular, but it is definitely something that is tricky to facilitate. And I don't know if anyone, the obstacles that you could see in trying to do this, and maybe some possible, what some possible successes could be coming out of this, or if you're willing to try that. But it could be on a very small scale with simply giving a very short passage that the conclusion you would have come to, rather than having them come up with it, you've already given it to them.
I know some other teachers' experience with taking baby steps with trying some of the flipped classroom possibilities might be as little as giving them a YouTube video or something else equally short, not demanding on time. It's kind of a little bit of pre-learning, I guess is how you could say it. It's a bite-sized exposure in the beginning, and then just to kind of get the curiosity engaged for the discussion the following day.
Thanks, Louise. I think that's a great point. It's really, what I found is that it is for those students who struggle with certain tasks in my class. They have kind of a leg up because they already know where we're going in the lesson.
I guess one of the connections you can make as a practical tool is that I imagine that a lot of teachers find themselves, towards the end of a period or the end of the day saying, okay guys, and just a reminder, this is what we're doing tomorrow. Don't forget to be ready with this or that kind of thing. And here you can actually give them a little piece of what they actually are going to be, going more deeply with the next day. And give it to them as something that they can prepare for prior to. And I think that a lot of teachers that start with little bits like that do make it pretty relaxed, so that students, say, who don't have the technology at home, then when they get into class the next day, they get that chance to to access a computer or whatever it is they need to do that little bit of pre-learning while everyone else is kind of gathering or getting on task with something else, so that there isn't that feeling of, oh, if I can't do it, then the teacher's going to start where that pre-learning left off. So it's not really that it's like that either. Is that what you would say, Christina?
Absolutely. And the one thing I find with this is it does take a lot of planning because some of us, a lot of times we're not sure what we're doing the next day, or if we finished a lesson the first day, is there something continuing on to the next day. So it's something that I've tried a couple of times, and it has been successful, but I definitely sprinkle it into my lessons. I don't do it all the time because, with, interruptions that come in the school day and, certain roadblocks or with the technology, it's nice as a change up, but it definitely requires some time and some planning. And it's one that I just started using, not as frequently though as the other tools that I'm using in class. But it's nice to be able to post it and have them think about it, but also sometimes I give them the paper copy so that they can walk away with it too. So we are coming down to the end here, and I'm just wondering if there's any other further questions about, I know we don't have a lot of time really to look at anything else, but if you have any questions about what you've heard tonight, or if you wanted to add any ideas to keep this conversation going, we can further discuss on Twitter, and I'd be happy to meet up with people if we wanted to maybe collaborate across classrooms or share more samples and continue discussion after tonight. Stacy mentioned, will there be a part 3? I am doing a session in a couple of weeks with some other tools, but it's more geared towards visual literacy. So I guess that could be my part 3.
I'll just jump in and let everyone know that, so Christina's session that happens next, we'll make sure that you get links to any related sessions to tonight in your follow-up email that gives you the link to recording and all the resources as well that'll be posted on the OTF Connects page. And while you guys are just thinking of anything else you might like to ask Christina, I'm going to just very, very, very quickly, I kind of made a little blip after all my talking at the beginning. We didn't catch the map of Ontario and where everyone is joining us from tonight in our recording, so I just wanted to quickly jump to that so that we have that for posterity's sake. And then we'll go to our thank you slide, and I want to let you know that the very first link in there, the big tiny URL one, is our feedback survey, which I will drop in the chat as well. And so 1 to 2 minutes, if you could fill that out and give us some good feedback, that does help us plan. And then the other link is, of course, the OTF Connects main homepage, and you can search under sessions for Christina's and some other stuff, but we'll make sure you have all those links as well in your follow-up email. So Syria, would you like to pop in and say a few words to finish us off tonight?
Certainly. Thank you, Louise, and thank you so much, Christina, for a very informative and interactive presentation, as always. You've done a great job, and thank you for sharing so many useful tools and creative ideas. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight, and please do take a few minutes to fill in the exit survey and share your suggestion. As you know, we do use your feedback to improve the program. We did run the second workshop from Christina because of your feedback from the first session that she did. Also, do share the OTF Connect site and link with your colleagues and encourage them to check out upcoming session. And again, for the first time for OTF Connects, we've added workshops on media violence prevention and one on domestic violence in the workplace, things that do affect teachers at home and in the workplace. So do encourage your colleagues to sign up for some of these sections, and I certainly would encourage you to look at those the media violence and the domestic violence workshops. And again, thank you, Louise, for always keeping us very well connected and making sure that all goes smoothly. Thank you all. And again, thank you, Christina, with an awesome presentation. Thank you all.